Relationship between VPT, VMT plus TDA, and T-twins, T-pattern, plus T-string, from my 6 disease risk studies, number 1444, November 22, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category, Concept, and Methodology. Preface. This paper expands on my earlier discussion with Professor Magnus S. Magnusson, the creator of the T-pattern and T-string concepts. Over the past 16 years, I have developed a quantitative health modeling system grounded in mathematics, physics, engineering, computer science, and artificial intelligence. This became VMT, Viscoplastic Medical Theory, from physics and engineering, and later VPT, Viscoplastopology, after I added TDA, Topological Data Analysis, from theoretical mathematics. VPT was originally designed to answer a practical question: how can a single patient, using only his own longitudinal health data, understand the evolution of complex chronic diseases, such as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, obesity, stroke, and dementia? To answer this question, I needed a framework that could link daily lifestyle behaviors to long-term biostructural damage. VMT provides the stress-strain-energy logic, and TDA provides the geometric and topological view, allowing me to quantify nonlinear dynamic changes across many years. Now I integrate my medical research VPT tools with the T-twins model of Magnus. Although we grew from different academic backgrounds and traditions, it took me 8 years to finally realize that our methods complement each other conceptually, at a deep and structural level. Only yesterday, during a long-distance phone conversation on November 21, 2025, it became clear to me that our two approaches together create a multi-layered understanding of disease and human health behavior, both physiological and psychological. This is an important milestone for my research work. Introduction. Chronic diseases cannot be explained by a single theory, or a single type of data. Mechanical forces, metabolic status, pathophysiological symptoms, psychological reactions, and long-term lifestyle patterns all interact in a dynamic and nonlinear way. Their damages are mostly irreversible. Even the few reversible parts demand persistent and disciplined lifestyle adjustments. Medications can do very little, because they mainly change surface biomarkers without fundamentally rebuilding damaged organ structures, or restoring true organ health, similar to neuroplasticity. My work combines nonlinear mathematics, viscoplastic energy physics, dynamic plastic engineering mechanics, AI-based pattern recognition through VMT, and long-term topological analysis through TDA. These tools quantify how stress accumulates inside the body, how strain responds, how irreversible damage gradually develops, and how organs attempt to repair themselves over years or decades. VMT lets me model each disease as a viscoplastic system. Once stress passes a certain threshold, the resulting change becomes partially or completely irreversible. Real life is not only about forces and equations, it is also about timing, patterns, sequences, and repetition. It is about when events occur, how often they occur, how they cluster or drift, and how multiple factors branch and reconnect as time passes. The T-twins model adds this temporal and structural dimension. It reveals how influential factors organize themselves into stable or unstable patterns over time. By integrating VPT with the T-twins, I can describe not only how each disease behaves internally, but also how different diseases connect and evolve across an entire lifespan. This union of mechanical logic and temporal patterning is essential for understanding chronic disease. My stroke risk study and its T-pattern. In my stroke VMT analysis, the 4 influential factors were obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. Diabetes is the vertebral backbone or spine. It generated 36 years of microvessel calcification, and became the structural core of my stroke risk. Without this long-term vertical spine, the one-time acute hypertension trigger might not have produced such a dangerous hemorrhage in the pons area. It was the accumulated structural damage over decades that set the stage for the final catastrophic event. My overweight and obesity began around 1985 and later triggered my type 2 diabetes by 1990, although it was not diagnosed until 1995. Obesity was the behavioral and nutritional origin. Diabetes was the metabolic translation of those choices, and my microvessels paid the structural price for many years. Hypertension then produced the acute mechanical spike that ruptured the weakened cerebral microvessel on June 21, 2025. Dyslipidemia contributed additional stiffness and plaque burden over time. Together, these 3 secondary factors created the arms and legs surrounding the diabetic backbone. In the language of the T-twins, diabetes forms the vertical spine, while obesity, hypertension, and dyslipidemia form the arms and legs of the T-pattern. The geometry is symbolic but meaningful. It describes how one dominant factor, diabetes, carries the long-term structural burden and how 3 secondary factors pull on that. backbone from different directions. This matches my VMT findings, and also matches the clinical mechanism of my stroke, extending across 6 diseases, the T-string. Beyond stroke, I completed 6 major VMT studies: stroke, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and dementia. Each disease has its own ranked set of influential factors. Kidney disease may place diabetes and blood pressure at the center. Dementia may emphasize vascular stiffness, glucose control, sleep quality, and past cardiovascular events. All influential factors have different contribution ratios. Each ranking forms a separate T pattern with its own backbone, arms, and legs. When these separate T patterns are aligned across time or across organ systems, they form a T-string, a connected sequence that reveals long-term structural logic. In my case, the T-string shows how early obesity in my 30s led to diabetes in my 40s, to cardiovascular problems in my 50s and 60s, to stroke risk in my late 70s, and now continuously raising risks for cancers and dementia. This continuous sequence creates a structural storyline of disease, not 6 isolated conditions. Both VPT and the T-twins converge naturally on this perspective. My 6 disease patterns form a T-string that maps the evolution of my health risks, and shows exactly where the string can still be bent, slowed, or partially reversed through disciplined lifestyle management. Micro and macro views, VPT versus T-twins. VPT consists of VMT plus TDA. VMT describes strain-stress interaction, energies, thresholds or turning points, and cumulative structural damages. It answers questions such as how much additional stress is created by a rise in systolic blood pressure, or how a decade of poor glucose control compares, in energy terms, with one sudden acute event. TDA describes geometry, topology, clustering, and shape evolution. It allows me to see whether my daily data form tight clusters, drifting clouds, or fragmented islands that signal instability. It reveals the spatial structure of my metabolic and behavioral history. Together, VMT and TDA provide both micro and macro mechanistic views. VMT looks inside each component, while TDA shows the shape of the entire system in multidimensional space. The T-twins add a temporal and structural behavioral layer on top of this. T-pattern shows backbone and branching within a single disease. T-string shows how multiple diseases connect into a chronological storyline. In summary, VPT provides mechanical energy level and geometric truth of hair, size and connectivity, while the T-twins provide temporal and structural meaning. Why the T-twins are necessary. Even though VPT provides powerful mathematical and physical insights, the T-twins add a structural behavior pattern language that VPT does not provide on its own. This pattern language is closer to how traditional clinicians and normal patients think. VPT answers mechanical questions. How does energy accumulate? What forces create damage? What happens once thresholds are crossed? T-pattern answers structural behavior questions. What is the central backbone? Which factors act as arms and legs? How do these arms and legs pull on the backbone over time? T-string answers systemic questions. How do diseases link across decades? Which early patterns predict later catastrophic outcomes? Where can lifestyle intervention change the direction of the string? Both VPT and the T-twins are required for a complete, clinically useful understanding of chronic disease. A note on my VMT software design. My VMT software module inside of my custom medical AI system, Chronic, on my iPhone allows 1 output strain and up to 5 input stressors. This design structure simplifies and focuses the calculation, and also mirrors the T-pattern logic. 1 backbone or spine plus several arms and legs, up to 4 limbs. This forces me to identify truly dominant factors, instead of hiding behind many weak statistical correlations. I am a trained deterministic mathematician, and I do not rely on statistical correlations to conduct my medical research work. I especially avoid using any statistical tools, including correlations, to determine the contribution levels of input factors on mortality diseases, because correlations are often misleading. Instead, I use calculated VMT, stress-strain interaction energy levels based on physics and advanced engineering. Unfortunately, this method is not easy for doctors, patients, or non-engineers to understand or interpret, even though it usually provides far more accurate answers. How clinicians can use this system. A clinician can apply this framework by ranking the top 5 stressors for any specific disease or patient. For stroke risk, a physician may rank diabetes first, hypertension second, obesity third, dyslipidemia fourth, and sleep apnea fifth. The top factor becomes the backbone or spine of the T-pattern. The others become limbs, arms and legs. The T-string then shows where the patient is in the long term. Multiple disease combined progression. This helps clinicians create individualized lifestyle interventions that are far more precise than generic advice. Different academic backgrounds, same direction. Magnus comes from biology, psychology, and behavioral science. His strength is identifying temporal patterns in sequences of human behavior and life events. This led him to propose the T-pattern, T-string, and T-society concepts. I come from mathematics, physics, material mechanics, engineering, dynamic plasticity, computer science, artificial intelligence, semiconductor integrated chip modeling, and long-term quantitative system modeling. This led naturally to VMT, TDA, VPT, and later, AI-driven medical analytics, such as neural network modeling, NNM. Magnus built a language based on patterns. I built a system based on both mathematics and physics. We approach the same problem from two different directions, and the convergence of our ideas confirms that both perspectives capture fundamental truths about human health and human behavior. The unified system, VPT plus T-twins. When combined, these systems form a four-layer integrated view. VMT shows energy and force mechanisms. TDA shows geometry and topology. T-pattern shows the backbone and limb branches. T-string shows multi-disease evolution across life. This unified model explains why diseases happen, what shapes their form, how factors organize, and how different diseases connect across many years or decades. It respects mathematics, physics, engineering, energy, geometry, data, science, and pattern recognition of human systems and behavior. Conclusion: the integration of VPT and the T-twins provides a comprehensive, multi-layered view of chronic disease, human health, aging process, and longevity. VPT describes internal mechanics of damage and repair. The T-twins describe temporal patterns and structural logic. Together, they offer both scientific precision and intuitive clarity. For me, as both a patient and a research scientist, this unified framework is not abstract. It shows how my past ignorant and lazy behaviors created my present risks, and how my current lifestyle discipline can still restore part of my damaged health, and possibly reshape my future. For clinicians and researchers, it points toward a path beyond simple statistical averages, or correlations, and beyond isolated single disease pathophysiology, toward a systems-based, temporal, and pattern-aware view of overall health. In my medical research, there are no boundaries among endocrinology, cardiology, nephrology, neurology, or oncology. They all form one unified system in my eyes and in my mind. Over the past 18 years, my preparation across 8 academic disciplines: mathematics, computer science, biomechanics, mechanical engineering, artificial intelligence, structural engineering, soil mechanics, and business management with economics and marketing, has also merged into one unified knowledge domain. All of this knowledge and work experience has become a set of tools that I now use to save my own life, and to provide useful information for others who may need it or could use it. That is why I have used mass communication channels, such as YouTube, to share what I have learned about diseases and health, rather than rely on journals or conferences to gain recognition within the small, academic circle of medical professionals. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical or financial advice. No doctor-patient or advisor-client relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.